What's Up Whittier?
Welcome to What's Up Whittier, a homegrown podcast.
A podcast to showcase Whittier's businesses, personalities, and hidden treasures.
Howdy neighbors, producer Christine here with this week's community corkboard announcements. But before we get to the community corkboard announcements, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you because y'all were very patient during this campaign season. We weren't coming out with our regular episodes, and for that, I am grateful for your patience. Now we're right back on track, so we're getting these episodes out. We're going to get them out every other week right now. Looks like our scheduling towards the end of the month, I am heading out of the country, which was kind of interesting because President Trump put a travel ban on travels to and from Europe, except for the United Kingdom. Go Brexit. So I'm still going on this trip. It's really been keeping me going through the campaign. And on that note, I also just want to say thank you so much for all of our loyal listeners that have been reaching out and asked, where's producer Christine's podcast episode? Well, I just want to let you guys know that the reason why we decided to not have me put out a podcast episode is because this is my podcast. So really, we already kind of did that. If you listen to our episode 100, where I announced that I'm running for office, I talked a little bit about why I decided to run, and you get to learn a little bit more about me. We didn't quite talk about policy. I didn't know as much as I do now about policy. Yes, the election's over, but that doesn't mean that I'm not still a city commissioner, and that doesn't mean that I don't still live here. So I do plan on running again in 2 years, and I would be grateful for your support at that time. And thank you all for people that voted for me, supported for me, and still listen to the podcast, because at the end of the day, we're all neighbors here in our community, and we all want what's best for Whittier. We may have different ideas on how to do it, but we're all pro Whittier, which I'm incredibly grateful for. You guys can listen to my podcast, Issues with Christine. I stopped putting them up online, but you guys can go onto my Facebook page, Christine Singer Luna for Whittier Mayor 2020. I think I'm going to change the name right now, actually. But you can go on there and just watch them and just learn about, what this whole thing is about and what we've been doing throughout this entire campaign. Our last episode is a really good one. I liked it. But also, I would implore you to listen to Café con Chisme. Yasmin Ferrada, she was a candidate in District 3. She also has a podcast. So if I were you, I would go listen to that just to really get an insight on what it's like to be brown and a woman and run for office in Whittier and to be young. It's really interesting. That being said, I am here to give you the community corkboard announcements. So right now we're really dealing with a COVID-19 scare, the coronavirus. It is very, it's all out there. People are self-quarantining if they've come in contact with any individuals that have been diagnosed with it. The NBA got shut down because of it. No more NBA playoffs. I believe March Madness got canceled, or there will be no fans in the stands. So yeah, just to keep an eye out, and just remember, be vigilant about your public health. Public health is public wealth, and wash your hands. If you see anybody coughing, drink your water. Make sure you're taking your vitamins. We just need to have, vitamin C is so important. I was reading this morning about, in China and in other places in the country, what they've been doing is just pumping people with vitamin C. As long as we just all take care of ourselves and, we're responsible for our families, hopefully we won't see any more illnesses or deaths. Apparently Dr. Oz says like 60% of the country is going to be infected. I think that's a little fear-mongering. Dr. Drew does not say that, but then again, these are TV doctors, so who do you trust? At the end of the day, just make sure that you're taking care of yourself, your family. Please, 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 let's be extra vigilant when we're around individuals that are over than 60. There's a higher, mortality rate there. That being said, again, thank you everybody for taking care of your health, taking care of our health, because public health is public wealth, and our health is our wealth. And we just need to take care of ourselves. Okay? Alrighty. That was me on my soapbox. Let me get off now and tell you about some community corkboard announcements. Every Friday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. we have the Uptown Whittier Farmers Market, located on the corner of Philadelphia and Bright. And honestly, you guys should follow Uptown Whittier Official on Instagram because they have a lot of great information about events that are happening in Uptown Whittier. Our past art stroll was canceled this past Wednesday due to weather concerns because we were expecting a crazy forecast, but I also believe that, part of it was due to just being safe about our health in regards to coronavirus. So, just keep on lookout for the art stroll next month then. This Friday, if you would like to go out, go to the Uptown Whittier Improvement Association's social event. So that'll be tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. And that's going to be at 13507 Earlham Drive, which is part of Whittier College. So it says, get involved with the beautification of Uptown Whittier. Learn more about the UWIA, its work, and how you can improve public spaces in Uptown Whittier. Appetizers and drinks will be served. It says that this event is at capacity, but I am still going to go. One, because when I went onto this link online, there was no way to register for it, so that was interesting. And two, due to the coronavirus, I think a lot of people are not going places. I was out yesterday, and it's amazing how this restaurant I was in was empty. This restaurant would normally serve like 200 people at a time, and there was like 30. So that was interesting to me. So if you are able to make it out, please do that. That'd be great to support the Uptown Whittier Improvement Association, which is an association of property owners that voted to tax themselves so that they can improve Uptown. So let's get out there and tell them that we want cleaner streets. And if you're available on Saturday, March 14th, that's Pi Day 3.14, head on over to First Christian Whittier. First Christian Whittier is having a rummage sale. They will be selling office, classroom furniture, audio-visual equipment, small appliances, decorating and craft materials, custodial equipment, knickknacks, and thingamabobs galore. Again, it'll be this Saturday, March 14th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 6355 Greenleaf Avenue in the Fellowship Hall, which is downstairs. So you're going to enter on Hadley. I'm sure there will be signs. You can definitely park in any nearby parking lots and walk on over. It's like a 2-minute walk, no big deal. And also on Saturday, March 14th, head on over to Singin' and Swingin', an afternoon of singing and swinging to great musical hits from the 1940s, performed by Coral Bel Canto and Big Band Theory. Your toes will be tapping to tunes like Tuxedo Junction, Come Fly With Me, Chattanooga Choo Choo, and On the Sunny Side of the Street. Join us in the Ray Theater at Rio Hondo College on Saturday, March 14th at 4 p.m. for a concert that will bring a smile to your face. And Saturday afternoon parking is a breeze, featuring a pre-concert talk by Dr. Brown at 3:30. So make sure you head on over at 3:30. Tickets are available for purchase online or at the door. And on Saturday, March 21st, 2020, head on over to the Whittier Historic Neighborhood Association in Uptown Whittier. They're going to be having their annual yard sale. So it says, rain or shine, join the historic Whittier Neighborhood Association for their yard sale. It'll be from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it'll be along, it's a pretty good stretch of land here. It's going to go on Painter, Hadley, Orange Drive, and I believe that's Greenleaf. So look within that area and you'll definitely be able to see some family-friendly yard sales. And lastly, we have our Whittier Post Office dedication ceremony. So the Whittier Post Office will be renamed in honor of Whittier resident and Vietnam War veteran Jose Ramos. Mr. Ramos was an avid advocate for Vietnam War veterans and an active member of the Whittier community. Please join us in celebrating his legacy. Congresswoman Linda Sanchez is going to be dedicating the Jose Ramos Post Office. So if you'd like to RSVP, go to 562-860-5050 or sign up online at joseramosPostoffice.eventbrite.com. The ceremony is free and open to the public. Again, it's taking place on Wednesday, March 18th at 11 a.m. The address of the Whittier Post Office is 8520 Michigan Avenue, Whittier, California, 90605. And then after, head on across the street, go over to Fresh Off the Hook or Grub Burger Bar, get yourself a nice lunch. So thank you everybody for listening to this week's Community Corkboard announcements. Follow us. If you don't follow us, head on over to Instagram, Facebook, What's Up Whittier. And, we have some really great hosts. We have Remo the Realtor, the one and only. Head on over to RemoTheRealtor.com to learn more information if you're looking to buy or sell your home in 2020. What a great new decade, so why not start it in a new home? And if you already have a home, but you're looking to make some changes to it, or you're interested in participating in, homelessness prevention and building an ADU, an additional dwelling unit, contact J2 Architects. You should contact my guy, Jessie the Architect at J2 Architects. You can head to j2architects.com or on social media, J2 Architects. He'll get back to you, no problem. They're a really great firm. They do a lot of great stuff. I know that Remo and Jessie work together a lot of the time, but it's because they're both great people to do business with. So, of course, they'll do business together. And for me, if you need a notary, you can reach out to me. My Instagram is @thesingingmoon. And if you do want to kind of stick around to learn more about my advocacy for the community, head on over to ChristineForWhittier.com. You can also follow me at ChristineForWhittier on Instagram. And I'm going to change the Facebook name, so but still, go out and look for @ChristineForWhittier on Facebook. Like I said, and also I've been saying this during the whole campaign, but the new mayor or the mayor would be sworn in mid-April. So today I'm still a commissioner, and although all the votes have not been counted, I'm pretty strong in third place, getting over 10% of the vote. So that's a pretty good job for your first time. And so I implore you, please join me on the next journey, because just so many positive things to take out of this campaign. I can't tell you how many times I actually met individuals that said, I've never voted. People that are 30 years old. 30, okay? I know that when I was 18, I was excited to vote, but then we have Gen Xers who I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to know them. And they're like, Christine, I've never voted. And so my first vote was for you because you were literally the first name on the ballot. That's special. And, nobody can take that feeling away. So it's incredibly awe-inspiring, and it's awesome just to kind of learn how you've inspired individuals to really step up and do for their community. And this is a very positive campaign. So we really focus on having positivity really be the center of it. But anyway, this isn't Issues with Christine. You guys can follow that podcast. But again, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for listening to What's Up Whittier. Thank you for following, subscribing, liking, leaving us reviews, and sharing with your friends. Because at the end of the day, we're all here for our community. We all love Whittier. We love talking about our people, our personalities, our nonprofits. And if you are interested in coming onto the podcast, email us at whatsupwhittierpod@gmail.com. We record our episodes on Thursdays after 4 o'clock. So if that time works for you, that time works for us. Let me know. Alrighty, everybody. So again, please don't forget to follow all of us and check out our new website, whatsupwhittier.xyz. Thank you so much. I am so grateful for all of the listeners. I know that Jessie and Remo are too. So, all right, here we go. Take it away, Jessie and Remo.
What's up, Whittier?
Dun, dun, dun.
Christine, welcome back.
Hey, guys. Missed everybody. How's everyone doing out in podcast universe?
It feels like forever, right?
It does feel like forever, but we're back. We're back to the normal routine here.
Routine, the exciting routine.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last series we did, it was great. I think obviously every year we'll keep improving it and making it better. Mm-hmm. But I think I learned a lot. Obviously, you learned a lot, way more than we did.
Yeah, I was actually in it.
In the trenches, yeah. Which I think that'll bring a different podcast interview.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In the future. But getting back to it, I was having a conversation with somebody today earlier in the morning about this whole podcasting, and they obviously listen in, mm-hmm. and so they're curious to see who was up on the lineup. And I said, well, we have some interesting people coming on. Obviously, I didn't want to start throwing names out there, but I didn't mention we had an artist or a writer coming in today. But I said, stay tuned. And I think everybody's in that mode. I think politics is already
it's like back to reality kind of a thing, right?
It's like, let's get into something that's more entertaining, right? Mm. But with that said, Christine, who do we have today?
Well, I know we're not doing politics, but here is my colleague from the Cultural Arts Commission. We have Commissioner, what's your name again? I'm just kidding. OCtavio Cesar Martinez.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, with your Hispanic background, you went total Caucasian on the pronunciation there.
OCtavio Cesar Martinez.
OCtavio
There you
Cesar
go.
Martinez.
You got to roll the R.
Roll the R.
Cesar.
Roll the R, go home. Roll the R or go home. Yeah.
OCtavio, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
You're our second writer. Is that right?
I think so.
It's your second.
Second or third or...
Wow.
I'll say second because I don't remember the third. But you're our second.
Eva wrote a book. Troy wrote a book. Cesar, Octavio. I'm like Cesar. Octavio wrote a book. All right. But you're here today, so we're very grateful for your presence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what
also the second book I wrote.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, I'd say we stick with the two.
Okay.
Two works. But we had, obviously, before we started the podcast, we had a little kind of conversation. But for those that don't know who you are and obviously have not read any of your books, kind of, who are you? I mean, who is OCtavio?
Mm-hmm. So I've lived in Whittier about 35, 40 years. I spent 30 years in telecommunications, always in some sort of a sales role. So sales, managing sales, corporate sales, small business. And married, going on 4 decades, actually 4 decades plus. Spent some time as a pastor until I resigned back in 2015. But that book probably colors... what the story in that book probably colored everything I did in terms of wishing to help people, the work I did at the church, the work I currently do at St. Mary's, and so the whole topic is about forgiveness, learning how to forgive, what forgiveness is not, and how a person can become healthier and freer by practicing the virtue of forgiveness.
Before we get into your book and what this whole book entails, a little bit about yourself in terms of, I know you kind of say you pretty much grown up in the area.
Yeah.
You've kind of mentioned in terms of what you've done in the past in terms of work. What are you currently doing now other than writing?
Yeah. Actually, writing has taken up almost all my time.
Oh, nice.
Currently, I do some small jobs as a coach for people, the life coach thing. Writing has always been a kind of a thing in the last 3 or 4 years. For almost 35 years, I was developing content, always telling stories, always teaching. And so it was now a matter of actually just putting it in writing. I did some speech writing for people. I've done that for folks. And also a personal stylist for men. I had many more female clients than I have male clients, but done weddings, personal makeovers, people coming out of college going into a professional environment, and so I have done a few male clients. In fact, I got another gentleman out of Nassau who wants to revamp his look, so I do that.
Look at you!
Look at me!
It's
and that's why he's a stylist.
Honestly, that's a lot of like talk about a Renaissance man, right? Like trying to all put it all together.
Yeah, I know it's random, right? It makes no sense. But the whole clothing thing is from my dad. I mean, my dad was that guy that, wore the suit to go to work, and then he would switch into his chef whites, do his thing. The chefs, he was a sous chef. He still had a little apartment at the hotels or restaurants he would work at. Mm-hmm. So he would shower and change and come back in his suit, and I just said, oh, that's how grown men live. You wear a suit. Yeah.
And for those that are listening that don't know who you are, I need to kind of, maybe you can help me describe yourself because it's a little distracting right now. Even though we're in podcasting and we're not recording, your hands are moving, but your hands are tattooed.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit about what you got going on tattoo-wise on your hands.
So years ago, life was defined, I think, by violence. I mean, there was a point I didn't even trust myself with my own kids or family. I was never certain when something would just set me off. With strangers in the streets, I mean, And so my hands had scars from that time and a couple of broken bones, and so they were, it showed, my life showed on my hands. What happened in my 40s is that what used to be an embarrassment was now a place of reminding me that I was no longer that person. So that I had no tattoos at all. And the first thing I wanted to get a tattoo from was on my hands. My first church assistant, a woman named Janine, she was beautifully tattooed, just a beautiful woman, had some amazing artwork. So she called me one day to say that she had an appointment. She had to cancel it because she was going to go to Palm Springs that same weekend in the, something in the swimming pool water. What is it?
Chlorine.
The chlorine, that's it. The chlorine was going to be a problem and being in the sun, so she decided to cancel her appointment. She asked me if I wanted it, so I took it. So I go to Lefty's Tattoo in Orange, and I see Dan out there, and he's done all my artwork. So the first time I went out there, I said, hey, I want to get this on my fingers. So he's doing the work, and he says, well,
but you knew what you were getting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I always knew.
Okay.
The reason why I delayed it, actually, was that there was a book entitled the same thing, Love Wins. And I didn't want to be a fanboy. I mean, the book was okay, but I just, I didn't want people to think it was all about the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's doing the work on my hands, on my fingers, and he says, oh, where else do you have your artwork? And I said, oh, that's it. He goes, oh, this is the first place you're getting it done? I said, yeah. I don't plan on working anymore, apparently.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, my gosh, that's so hard. And everyone was amazed. I thought, well, for me, again, I just thought, well, this is what I wanted to do because this is my story.
Yeah.
So he had quoted me one price. He decided to add color, do some other flair, because it's Sailor Jerry is what I have. And so he charged me less. Thought that was just a cool, fun thing I did. And so then I went to the Sacred Heart of Christ, the Cairo, the first two letters of Christ's name, prayer beads. This is the Rose of Sharon. And the next artwork, it's all Catholic. It will be Catholic. Yeah.
So I know you kind of quickly glossed over what you do have, but Love Wins is what's tattooed across.
On the fingers, yes. That's right. Love Wins.
Across your knuckles there.
Mm-hmm.
And then right below is what, a verse?
Yeah, this is the New Testament passage that it comes from. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 8. And that verse starts with St. Paul saying, love never fails. So, in fact, if you've been to any wedding, usually 1 Corinthians 13, there's 2 or 3 verses people will always read from there. And it's always this romantic, gauzy, warm, everything's going to work out, love, blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, but, there's a lot of heavy lifting that goes with loving somebody.
Yeah.
But Paul is describing God's divine love towards us, and then hopefully then we mimic that in love for each other.
Mm-hmm.
But he ends that little soliloquy with saying, love never fails. And he starts verse 8. But as I was just telling you earlier, I don't have enough fingers for that, so I was just like, love wins.
Yeah.
Love wins.
That's funny.
Yeah.
In terms of the heart, though, can you go back to that? So what? Because the thing that catches my eye, aside from obviously having tattoos on your hands, is that the red color pops out on all your tattoos. Yeah,
it does. So this is the iconic symbol for the heart of Jesus that's aflamed, and there's encircled with a crown of thorns.
Mm-hmm.
There's a similar image for Mary, his mother, but it's encircled with a ring of roses, or sometimes there'll be 7 swords with the 7 sorrows. So this is the one I chose. The next thing I have is some 3 crowns for the Trinity, 2 crosses here, and 3 stars for the dual nature of Christ and the Trinity here as well. And then the next will be Mary, Christ, and a couple of quotes from Augustine.
So you got it all mapped out.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly. Well, the other reason, and as I joked about it at Biola, if I'm ever disfigured in a horrible accident, when the demons and angels are arguing over my body, they'll say, I think this one's ours, so we'll take him and kick him down if he isn't, but we'll take him for now.
That's funny. Oh, man. That's awesome. Again, aside from being a conversation starter, I mean, to have such a story put into that, again, and I think it ties back to what your book
Yep.
you started writing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, let's get into the book.
Okay.
If you could explain to us a little bit about, first tell us the title.
Sure.
And then tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Okay. So the book is a long title, and we went back and forth with the publisher about that. The book is called "It Was a Beautiful Day When My Father Died." My father died back in 2004 in July, and so it has three meanings. One, I was glad he died. I had that much contempt for him. Second thing is, it was a turning point for me emotionally, spiritually. The third thing is that it just happened to be actually a very beautiful day. And so the title works on all those levels. We were looking at a subtitle, and the subtitle we were thinking about was, "It was a beautiful day when my father died, on forgiveness and fatherhood," or "Fatherhood and Forgiveness, it was a beautiful day when my father died." We went back and forth on that. We ended up just leaving it where it was. And so it is a story of learning how to forgive a very difficult person, and how not forgiving him didn't punish him, it punished me.
You say it was difficult in the sense that just the way you were raised, or difficult in what sense?
Yeah. So just to be clear, the story is not about I'm an amazing guy, I'm such a saint, I'm a hero, I'm a survivor. Those kind of stories don't interest me. They really don't. I'm trying to point out that I failed as a son to two fathers, my earthly father and my heavenly father. And then I failed, I think, as a father raising kids because I was carrying all this crap inside of me, all this poison. So the story, my dad was a AAA dad. That's the shortest way to put it. He was an alcoholic, he was an adulterer, and he was an abuser. And unfortunately, he probably didn't have anybody in his life that could help him put the brakes on.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have anybody perhaps who could show him a better way to live, or maybe call him on the carpet. I did. I was very fortunate. I had a couple of men step in and point out that I was destroying the very thing that mattered to me, which was my family. And so, when someone pulls your covers, you can either get pissed off and bitter because you're embarrassed, or you could ask for help.
Yeah.
And luckily, I chose number two.
Well, I'm late to the party, so...
Oh, hey, Remo.
Yeah, hey, guys. Sorry for coming late. So obviously, I walked in, and we were talking about tattoos, and now we're talking about a book, which is unique. And I'm looking through the book, and I see some of these chapter names, and they're not your typical chapter one.
No. Yeah.
One of them is, he was 7 when his mother tried to hang him.
Yep.
The 80s, and that effing bird. So
Right.
Where did the titles for the chapters come from?
Christina and I were talking earlier, and I think everyone has mentioned this. My mother once said something to me that is definitely borne out to be true, that there's something to learn from everybody. Sometimes it's what not to do. Mm-hmm. And if you take the time to get to know someone, you realize, okay, they're a jerk, they're an idiot, but now I know why. And you can develop sometimes some compassion or patience for it. Mm-hmm. As I got to remember more of my dad's story, a lot of that crap that happened to him as a young kid, growing up in Mexico, his mother died when he was 9, I think. Mm-hmm. She was a very serious woman. I never met her, obviously. She died long before I was even born. But I saw a picture of her, and she seemed like a no-nonsense, humorless woman. Mm-hmm. So, as I say in that story, my dad found out how no-nonsense and humorless she was. She actually tried to hang him.
Wow.
And my grandfather happened to come home early one day.
Wow.
And caught that. And my dad says, I don't know if she would have done it.
Yeah.
She was about to kick the chair out,
Yeah. Wow.
And that's got to screw with you.
Yeah.
So he was a small boy when she died, and he took comfort in sharing a bed with my grandfather. He slept with him. But my grandfather was, a normal man and met somebody else, get married, and then, he was, I don't want to say kicked out, but he was told he had to leave.
Yeah.
So he went through a rejection a loss of his mother and what felt like a rejection.
Correct.
You know, yeah, he had his own stuff to deal with, and I'm sure he might have thought, like a lot of people do, well, somebody loves me, you know, that'll redeem me, that'll change me. Love changes everything. It doesn't. Yeah. You just carry that crap into another relationship.
And I think that's kind of, as human beings, that's almost, that's what I've been noticing in terms of...
What's that?
It's just keeping that same, what's the right word? Just
baggage?
Like baggage, but also like, yeah.
Like
so
patterns?
Exactly, patterns. And so if you're raised in a certain way and you hold on to some negativity, then the next cycle, which is essentially your family, then you start repeating the same things that your past,
Yep.
father or relationship had.
Yep.
And it's not until somebody kind of nips in the bud and says, you know what, this is not right. This cannot continue going this way, and you decide to kind of do that 180 and go in a different direction.
Well, we talked about your respect for the scriptures, and in the Old Testament, it sounds harsh, but it's a therapeutic principle. Mm-hmm. The Lord says, "I visit the sins of those who hate me on the third, fourth generations." Like, wow, that's messed up.
Yeah.
You know, why are you punishing people who weren't even responsible?
Yeah.
But what he's talking about is that, alcoholics tend to raise alcoholics.
Yes.
A molester is going to screw someone's sexual life.
Yeah.
And then that'll pass on.
Yeah.
And a physical abuser is going to raise a physical abuser. Mm-hmm. And he did. And until something happens, until something changes, nothing changes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So some people might have a powerful religious experience, and that makes a change. Some people realize, okay, I'm destroying everything that matters to me. I need help, and they'll go seek it. Or so it could be therapy, it could be religion, it could be just a matter of someone waking up and recognizing, I need to stop this.
That behavior, yeah.
Yeah, it's something.
And so just before we started, I was briefly reading the book. I mean, one of the chapters you kind of start off with, you and your dad were essentially twins, with obviously an age difference.
That's right, a few years, yeah.
Yeah. And so in terms of, obviously that's almost the foundation of what you're talking about through the book. But how does that differentiate? How is it different from your life now to where you were in the past, realizing that?
My father was a creative guy. He, like I said, I learned so much about. Well, I actually mimic a lot of what he is. In fact, my hand motions. I mean, I realized sometimes I was sitting the way he would sit, and I would change it because I didn't want to be him.
You don't want to be him, yeah.
I didn't want to be him. Yeah. The way he wore his cologne, the clothes, colors. He was also creative, and being a chef was his creativity. My father cooked for President Ford and President Carter. He cooked for the Rolling Stones. Wow. He was on that FBI and the Secret Service, not watch list, but when he would cook, those guys would be in the kitchen watching you cook. Mm. Yeah. And there was only a certain number of people allowed in the kitchen when you're cooking for those people. Any rate, I think the difference is that, okay. I mean, I'll lean back into my faith. I've often said that Jesus Christ was the first and only human being, and what I mean by that is, people's crap and brokenness, or what the church would call sin, is not intrinsic to humanity. It's intrinsic to our humanity, but it's not intrinsic to being a human being. Mm-hmm. So Christ comes fully human, fully divine, so without sin. And he lives a human life. What I think the difference has been for me is that I'm learning to get rid of that, or learning to rely on his strength through the Holy Spirit, and not live in that darkness, not live in that brokenness. I've had people say, well, faith seems to be restrictive, and it curtails you, and this, that, and the other. Okay, well, I've been off the leash before, and not a whole lot of good came out of it. And so people who are listening to this are thinking, oh, this guy's full of crap. Let me ask you, do you find yourself always listening to every single appetite or impulse that comes up? I'm going to bang that chick. I'm going to look at that porn site. I'm going to drink this. I'm going to lose my temper here. At least Christ is saying, I will remove that so that you can finally be the best version of yourself. so that you can be free not to have to do every single impulse that comes in. Some of it is, some of it is, you were talking earlier for Lent, I'm trying to work on my language. Some of it is harder, some of it is easier. The whole, my anger thing, that was an act of his kindness. That went literally almost overnight, was gone. But other stuff has been a little harder to work through.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where I don't know if it's kind of like you said, it's that you're getting older and you start realizing that, or somehow it's brewing behind your mind, and you're like, I got to get to it. I know I got to fix this, or I got to work on this. And it's not until you get into that position that you find yourself, like they say, between a rock and a hard place, that you have to make that decision. Which at that point it's unfortunate because you're limited in terms of resources of what you can and cannot do. But again, is it life that gets you, or experience that gets you to that point, or is it some kind of, like you said, divine intervention to kind of move you in that direction?
Yes and no. I think it's all of it. Look, I think, I've met those people because I was a chaplain with the sheriffs and the chaplain here in Whittier. You meet people that come to, well, okay, I'll give you an example. Once we pulled over a situation, there was a lady from Orange County. So think of your typical Orange County Republican. She was giving blowjobs to her dealer for dope.
Wow.
That's how low she had gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she got arrested, and so did the dealer and all that. There's a number of things that went on. And I made me wonder, will she now finally get help? Maybe. Maybe not. So sometimes life teaches you, and I've said that sometimes the best teacher in life is experience. You find out what works, what doesn't work, right? Other times I think there's an act of grace and kindness. There's nothing in you calling out for help. There's nothing in you that's looking for it. God seems to show up. Why? I don't know. I don't know why he showed up in my life and not others, because I think of people that I've known who are better men, better women than I am, and I received a huge gift. So I don't want to waste it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I feel like I'm paying the rent for having existed, where I'm at. Others, sometimes they find that they see someone, a neighbor, a friend, like, so-and-so doesn't seem to have problems with their money, or they have a nice house. And what's the secret? What makes you tick?
Yeah.
And so, well, I choose to live this way. I have a particular moral code, or I have a standard, because of my degree in philosophy, I realized that you don't have to be religious to be moral, but there's always a better way to live. The Stoics were a good example of a better way to live, how to live, right? If you anybody remember seeing Gladiator with Russell Crowe? Yeah. Remember the Emperor Marcus Aurelius? Yeah. Marcus Aurelius was an amazing Stoic. He wrote a book, and so if you ever want to read about how to live a better life that has nothing to do with Christianity, he wrote a good one.
There you go. By the way, that was the best movie ever.
It is the best movie. I bought it.
I could watch it. Yeah, same here.
I can watch it 2 or 3 times, right? Yeah. I think everyone loves to see somebody who's willing to die for a good cause, right? And everything about that story is true. Had they not fought the Persians, democracy as we understand it wouldn't exist.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Yeah.
I had a question. What made the cursing that you said was easier to, not cursing, the anger, the temper.
Yeah.
What made that easy versus other things?
No, bro. I wish I could tell you what it was. Here's what's funny. I've said this many times. I said that God is an acquired taste. Mm-hmm. Not everybody likes it. Currently, I probably go to Mass minimum 2-3 times a week, Monday through Thursday, and of course on Sundays, which is required. You're a Catholic. I don't cheat and go to Saturday Vigil Mass. But I have an alarm set for about 4 or 5 times a day to pray, and one of the things I'm taking up for Lent, which is called this Holy Hour, is talk about praying for an hour, bro. That's a challenge, but. And all of that I'm working for to get my head into a place to get rid of set free, cleansed from cursing. I don't think of it as a big deal. I mean, it's not like, if someone drops the F-bomb, like I don't lose my mind. I don't go over and say anything. But for me, I just wanted to clean up my mouth. The anger thing was it was almost as if best way I describe it is that it was God telling me He would set me free from that, but I was going to have to live for Him. And I can honestly tell you, I paused. I wasn't sure because I had been so used to living like an asshole. And I thought, well, who am I going to be if I like? Okay,
Yeah, you've identified yourself as.
I know this guy.
Yeah.
Well, what's this guy going to be like?
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure. I mean, it actually gave me pause. And I thought, but so far this isn't working. Mm-hmm. So, okay. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be this weenie. I'm going to be this goofy dude. I'm going to be this Christian. Like it didn't sound attractive to me. So I thought, I don't know, but this wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And it was literally like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should you go around and speak to the younger generation in terms of your life experience and how to navigate through life, not wanting to make the same, I don't want to say mistakes, but
they were. It's okay, bro. They were mistakes. I mean, you don't end up in jail, in bankruptcy court, crashed cars, your ass kicked when you pick a fight with the wrong guy. Yeah. Because you're making wise life choices.
Well, those are lessons, right?
Those are lessons.
Through the challenge, you find the lesson in the
learning
story.
opportunities.
That's right. Find what can I learn from this as I'm being, as they're fixing you. When they're pulling out bits of gravel from your hands, and when they're going to 5150 you realize, okay, what can I learn from this? Yeah. I do. But you know what's funny about it? And this has gone on since Aristotle. Every generation thinks they're smarter than the one that came before them, and they think they're wiser than the ones that are coming after them. So I'm now that old guy. I mean, I'm old. So unless someone is looking for information, no, I won't. I've talked to people, unfortunately, that have had from heroin addiction to sleeping around with too many partners on a regular basis just to self-medicate. Yeah. There's a better way to live. If you're down, I'm happy to tell you. If not, and this is working for you, you're good. I'm good. You're still my friend. You come to my house. We'll eat. You're welcome to come to my church. Yeah. But if it's no longer working for you, I'm happy to tell you. So at the church, it was generally a younger crowd that I had. And I mean, I'm fairly transparent. I don't have any judgment. You're telling me you're banging a goat. Okay. Is that working for you? Yeah. No? Okay. Well, there might be a better way to live. Yeah. And here's what I found. Yes, I'm convinced it is the truth. I'm convinced that following Christ makes more sense than not. But if you choose not to, I don't have a dog in that fight. That's on you.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I said it is because, again, going through life and navigating through life, we all talk about, we're right now in a current stage or phase in our life. And I always hear people say, well, what piece of advice would you tell your younger self, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
And you're right. I could give a piece of advice, but are they really would I really take that advice and run with it? Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing I've noticed is that in philosophy you learn about the transcendentals, truth, goodness, and beauty. If I tell you what you're doing is wrong and it's not moral and this is what you should do, I'm thinking, who the hell are you? Yeah. I mean, I'm a Christian. I think that sometimes. Who the hell are you? Okay, thanks, bro. I appreciate it. If someone says to you, what you're doing is not good, and I know what's better for you, then I just think people don't care.
Correct.
They don't want to hear that someone is telling them that they know the truth or that they're better. But what's difficult to argue against is beauty. And so when someone lives a life that is interesting or attractive or winsome, oh, okay, well, then I think you earn the right to speak to someone. Another way that I've looked at sharing my faith is through the arts. The church has been a patron of the arts for years. I was just at Christ Cathedral this morning to see the Sistine Chapel exhibit. Now, I've been to Rome to see it, and it's stunning, but it's almost 6 stories up. So you don't get the impact of
You
it.
see all the detail, yeah.
Right. So when you see a full-scale reproduction right in front of you, and you literally can touch the vinyl canvas thing that they made them. They're bigger than life size. Wow. And then you read what Michelangelo did in what this particular image represents, and why it was important in the canon of art, and all that. But why did he do it? What is he painting? He's painting these biblical stories. He took the scripture seriously. This beautiful thing in this chapel there in the Vatican. That's compelling. And so it's the same thing like with I don't know. I don't follow sports. I never played sports, but I can appreciate world-class athletes. Like that's amazing. Oh, okay, I'll give you one. My son is a MMA fighter, amateur. And I would go see those fights, and they just look like brawling, They're crazy. But then my son took the time to explain it, what was actually happening in some of these holds and the grappling, and why that move was important, what was happening. All of a sudden, then I can see the beauty in these athletes, their bodies and their motions, their movements, and I wanted to learn more about it. So in the same way, I think if people want to talk about their faith, start with the beauty. Start with why it's a better way to live. Why it's a beautiful way to live. Otherwise, I think people don't care. Like, when you start with truth and goodness, that's a non-starter. Start with beauty, or just for everybody who's a Christian listening to this later on, why don't you just live a damn interesting life? Go to a movie once in a while, read a damn book.
Yeah.
I get it. Church is important. I get that. I'm there with you. But gosh, do something interesting. That otherwise, it's kind of an embarrassment, I think, to the church.
And it's interesting you said. Yeah.
Was that funny for you?
I mean, no comment.
No, but it's interesting you say that because I've had conversations with family about God and what our beliefs are. Obviously, everybody has different faiths, different beliefs, and for me, it's all about I think we all talk about paradise, the afterlife and all that. And for me, the way I've been looking at things is like I think we're meant to create our life, a paradise.
Yes.
Like we need to be happy.
Yes.
We need to enjoy our life, and we need to create something that at the end of the day, when we do leave the earth, that we're creating that paradise for our future generation. And that's what I'm saying, like in terms of conversations that you would have with the younger generation, because again, if we're having conversations at our age and we're talking about our life experiences, we don't have, I don't think, enough years to create that impact as a younger person would.
Look, if there was a way to help teenagers and young adults choose a healthier life from the get-go, when you're young, strong, your money-making years, the peak of your strength, most men we peak out late 30s to early 40s, and then everything starts to decline. I think most guys feel it in their 30s. Yeah. You can't drink the same way, you can't eat the same way, you don't bounce back from a cold. You're absolutely right, and it does happen. It happens maybe not as much as we'd like to see. However, the reality is that for many of us, we don't see all those things that maybe are unhealthy. They don't show up right away. Yeah. They show up 10 years from now, 15 years from now. You go, oh, crap. But once again, I think the universe, God, works in a person's favor, male or female, that when they start making good choices, you begin to pick up momentum and create a movement. So part of my writing that book was trying to leave something behind, because I won't be around forever, that would be useful, and that people who read that, then they would start to make healthier choices, and that it has, an exponential effect as well. Look, if someone reads that book, male or female, and they learn to forgive, and they're in their early 20s, say, for example, that's going to save them 2 or 3 decades, and a lot of crap that I went through and dragged my family through.
Yeah.
They won't have to do.
So what would you say the key factor would be to forgive?
Well, it's first recognizing that it's probably affecting you, low level to high level. The guy that cut you off, the barista that maybe didn't get your drink right and you were late for work.
I think you're describing Remo like
to a T right now.
I just brush things off.
And by the way, I think a lot of folks, oh yeah, so your book's trying to teach me how to let it go. Yes and no. I mean, yes, in that learning how to let it go by forgiving, but things just don't go. I mean, they accumulate. And then somebody blows up or something happens, you go, well, why are you? Look at it this way. Have you ever broken your finger or had a cut or strained your arm? You know how you kind of protect it, right? And you're more sensitive to it. When I moved into the house that I lived in, within 2 weeks, I made 3 hospital visits because I fell off a ladder or I cut myself and crushed a finger. It was almost as if the house was possessed, man. It was wild. But what I learned from all that is I'm clumsy as hell because my finger was bandaged up. I had broken something on my foot, and this was all jacked up. I didn't realize how often I bump into things, and when I did, it would hurt. Right? I think mental and emotional wounds are no different. So someone seems to blow up really quickly if you tease them about their looks. Well, there's something there. You just touched a sore spot. You touched an injury. Now, I'm not saying that forgiveness is the key to everybody's mental health, but I think it's a big one. And when you're looking at yourself reflectively, like what sort of injuries have I absorbed and not resolved? Forgiveness helps clean them out. Another way to look at it is the way people, when they eat food, you eat food, you take in the nutrients and evacuate the rest.
Yeah.
Okay. Forgiveness is the evacuation. It's getting rid of the crap. You learn from things like, okay, I need to learn how to pick better friends. I need to, I shouldn't be so trusting. I should have maybe, considered those yellow flags more seriously. So forgiveness is evacuation, but learning from the experience versus saying, oh, it's all bad. And when people who are not forgiving, they are emotionally and spiritually constipated.
Yeah.
And their relationships shows up in their work. It shows up in the way that they manage their lives. That I'm convinced of.
But I think you also talked a little bit about I listened to your Biola interview, and you talked a little bit about self-love and how important that is also.
Well, if it was like the self-forgiveness, forgiving yourself thing.
No, but it was like, I don't know, wasn't it? Or maybe I was listening to RuPaul's podcast, but it's like,
wow.
The fact that you confused us, that was.
Well,
that's an extreme.
There's a thing. Well, RuPaul says the thing. It's like, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anybody else? So the self-love, self-forgiveness. If you can't do that for your own self, how can you love or forgive others? Yeah.
Well, okay. So in the Bible interview, there was a question from one of the students about, how do you learn how to forgive yourself? I actually went the other direction. I said that self-forgiveness is utter nonsense. I'll get on my little soapbox. I think it's nonsense. Look, if the lawgiver of the universe forgives you, who's left? It's, I think, leaning into that and understanding who it is and what it is that you've been offered. You're not on the same moral footing. You're not another lawgiver. You're not on the same moral authority as God to say, oh, I need to forgive myself. I can get to the language that says, I accept the fact that I'm human and that I've demonstrated that Christian theology is true. I'm broken. And at my best, I'll have moments of greatness, but I'm still very dark without Christ. Yeah. I'll always, my default mode will be selfishness. My default mode will be stupidity. My default mode will be violence. My default mode will be darkness. In Christ, I have a healthier life. But, I guess if there's some self-love in there, is like, I let me live as a Christian so that I honor my Creator and I cause a little bit less just mess as I get through life.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the first step to forgiveness is always getting over the feeling of embarrassment.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you feel that way, but for me, and I notice this on my kids. I mean, we're talking about two kids who are very young and essentially don't have much faults in them. But the response to anything that I want to push them to kind of instill in them is usually, "Oh, I'm embarrassed," or "That's embarrassing," and it's like, that's kind of weird. I mean, even as we get older, I mean, that tends to be the reason why we don't do certain things, right?
Man, it's so stinking true. I mean, there's one thing I heard just recently about, be brave enough to be bad at something again.
Yeah.
But if you look at the story of Adam and Eve, and I think it's true, not just a mythic tale, the first thing that happened after the break with God is that they were embarrassed and they covered themselves. And that story has repeated for centuries. Yeah. Pride. I mean, think how hard it is to say you're sorry to your wife.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and I think
not me, baby. I can say sorry all the time.
Do you get used to saying it a lot? I tease a lot of young husbands, like, "Hey, man, buy a good couch and learn to say I'm sorry." Because if you don't learn to say I'm sorry, you're going to be on that couch.
Well, Remo has a whole room to himself, so
there you go,
a whole floor.
So, but suppose, and again, let me just say, I'll even say if the story of Christianity is true, you have a holy God showing up. And this is the problem for most people with Christianity. Christ is not a philosophy, though I think he has something to say about philosophy. He's not a principle, though I think he has something to say about principle. Christ is a person, and Christianity is personal. And to say that this perfect holy God comes at you, to say I'm sorry is hard, because he's completely nothing like... My essence, my being, is the result of him. He's pure essence, pure being. It's not even a person. That's not a category that he fits in. So when Jesus shows up, he does a miracle. One of the first things Peter says is, "Get away from me, I'm a sinful man." No one says, "Oh, there's a strange thing that happened in Christianity the last 70, 80 years where Christ became everybody's buddy, and he's my friend and my co-pilot." I mean, I get that to a degree, but if the story is true, he's Yahweh from the Old Testament. He is the God man, and that's hard to say I'm sorry to that person. Like, my goodness, the person could strike me, but he chose not to.
Where do you think, or how would you think, if somebody's reading your book or listening to this podcast and they're talking about forgiveness and they want to forgive, or start the forgiveness process, what do you think would be the best first step?
I think the best first step is recognizing there was an injury, there was an offense, and what happened wasn't right. Second thing is recognizing, okay, how much responsibility did that person have in that issue? If it was a child, a special needs adult, probably very little. So I can just forgive and forget. I need to maybe remind myself they had no responsibility in that action, and there's probably a very good chance they're never going to do it again.
Yeah.
Okay. Second step would be, well, what if they are responsible? They knew it, and they're not even owning it. Well, it doesn't matter. The other person who offended, caused the injury, caused the betrayal, they don't have to say, "I'm sorry," for me to forgive them. If I'm waiting for that, that's a business transaction. You do this, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're the one that's being hurt by that.
And the longer you hold on to it, Nelson Mandela, the quote that's credited to him, unforgiveness is like drinking poison but hoping they die.
Yep.
You understand it's not so much letting someone else off the hook, it's letting yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
Getting free. The final thing about forgiveness is that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to restore the relationship either. Sometimes the person will never own it. Maybe they're dead. They'll never say they're sorry. You still have to learn how to forgive, whether it's from your religious tradition or through a therapist or through maybe a life coach. Learning how to forgive is a safeguard for your emotional, mental health and anybody connected to you.
That's interesting you say the whole mental health, because it does play on a lot of people. And that's usually the root of why we navigate through life in these downs opposed to these ups. Yeah. And I was just listening to he's a business owner. He talks about how the mindset of a human being is essentially created based on his surroundings. Mm-hmm. And so this was specifically talking about the poor mentality versus a rich mentality, and how we get conditioned to think that way. Mm-hmm. And the examples he was putting out there, I mean, it was resonating with what I believe, and just seeing or looking back to the way I was raised, and being around friends who were also obviously coming up at the same time, and you could see how all that could play into your development as you get old.
Yeah,
and
think about your diet. Think about where you live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it made you who you are.
Yep.
Right. And I'll even say this: if all of us were to think about your friends, people you hang out with, people whose houses you go to, that kind of thing, right? They probably think like you to a large degree, similar socioeconomic status, similar political views, similar spiritual views. Yeah. And by the way, that's okay. Yeah. That's not wrong. But understand that you might not be that much of a free thinker as you are. Yeah. When you're challenged by someone else, in this case, I know I've gone back to this, but it does color me. When I'm challenged by the words of God, everybody has staggered at something God has said. Okay, I mean, people in the West, we love the idea of forgiveness. Take that crap. Take the idea of forgiveness to the Middle East. Forgive? The hell with that. I'm going to get even.
An eye for an eye.
Yeah, an eye for an eye. And not even just, and not so much even the sense that punishment should supposed to be appropriate. It's like, oh no, you did this to me, I'm going to do it to you. Take the idea of in the West, we might think the sexual standard of managing our sexual lives is completely out of line in the Scripture. Like, that's stupid. No. In the Middle East, it's not strict enough. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to stagger at the claims of Jesus and the words of God from the Old or New Testament. But if I'm not listening if I'm only listening to people who agree with me or I agree with, I'm just living in a stupid echo chamber. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's a healthy one, maybe it's a good one. Yeah. But maybe there isn't the truth there that I need that'll help me become the best version of myself. And this is where I think reading great thinkers, listening to the dead, I've sometimes referred to it as reading books or listening to people who are wise, have gone before us. If you can't buy the whole Jesus thing, that's cool. I get it. That's fine. But he lived a pretty good life, and every human trait or characteristic that we admire, he was the epitome of. Mm-hmm. Courage, sacrifice, service, you name it, piety, selflessness. So that's a pretty good life to follow. Yeah. But we talked earlier about the Stoics. It's not a bad choice either.
Yeah, you can't go wrong, right? I mean, and that's, yeah. I mean, we could go on for days on this discussion.
Okay, but I'll come back.
But at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to just living a good life and understanding that we're all, even though we're a human race, mm-hmm. right? We're all the same race. Mm-hmm. We have different ways of thinking. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, there's some fundamentals in life that I think if you follow, then you could be in a good position.
So let me end on my philosophy note. St. Paul speaks about that principle. It was the idea of the moral law, the natural law, that the universe is imprinted with that. So whether you're in another country, another culture, most people are going to agree, lying is wrong, sleeping with somebody else's wife is wrong, murder's wrong. There's just some universal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But by the same token, honesty, selflessness, generosity, kindness, all those things are universals that seem to work in every culture. And if someone finds their motivation because I'm a follower of Christ, I'm a follower of the Scriptures, I'm a follower of whatever it might be, great, that's good on you. I think the Catholic Church and my faith has something to offer. I think it is something to offer to everybody. But if a person says, no, I found this other moral code to live by, awesome. I'm glad that you've chosen a healthier way to live.
As long as nobody's getting hurt, right?
As long as, which is what our forefathers designed this country.
Yes.
You get to practice your faith any way you choose, as long as you're not stepping on someone else's rights, which was the pursuit of happiness was the idea of virtues, not, oh, this makes me happy.
Yeah.
Happiness in their thinking would have been virtues, which I just talked about.
Yeah.
I'm writing some notes here, so let me share a few things because I think I got a couple of things to share. So I think what was said about the forgiveness part is I think you have more tolerance towards people if you maybe take a second to understand why they think the way they do, whether it's right or wrong. I think because most people are not bad just by design, right? They were taught something, whether it's an abuser or so forth. Mm-hmm. So coming from a place of compassion where, you know, maybe they were abused themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think having that perspective and just being able to just pull yourself, in a sense, from the situation and say, you know, you could be upset or mad at that person, but they were kind of breeded into that. And so some compassion there is going to help us, in a sense, heal from a situation like that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that was mentioned, there's this book, it's called Atomic Habits, and it's James Clear. One of the quotes in there that he says is, the environment is the invisible hand that shapes us. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's a successful environment, whether it's an unsuccessful one, one of adultery, one of drugs, whatever it is, that becomes your normal. And as soon as you are in that normal, like you said, it just echoes more and more of that, and you can't get out of it. So picking your environment, whether good or bad, is huge. I mean, gangs are probably the most common one, right? Like a gang.
Gangs.
Gangs,
yeah.
I mean, there's love, there's trust amongst the gang, but they're not doing, good stuff.
Sure.
And when you asked earlier about the barista, or you said it earlier, I think, one thing that has helped me is to kind of brush off, I don't want to say small things, but just things in general. I always think, you know what, I need bigger problems. Because if I had a bigger problem, and that comes in different shapes, you hear some bad news about a family member's health, right? Whatever that barista did, and now all of a sudden you got this news, you could just, it's okay, I don't care about my drink because, and it's probably not the best way to live, but every time something starts to bother me, I say, you know what, maybe they have bigger problems in their life, or if I had a bigger problem, that wouldn't even bother me. So those are things that help me kind of brush things off.
I've heard it another way, but the same thought years ago. Someone mentioned, and I thought this really stuck. The size of your character is determined, or you can tell the size of your character by the size of the things that bother you and what kind of problems you have. So, like if you're going to lose your shit over the fact that someone got your coffee order wrong, you're a very small person. Yeah. You're about the size of a tall, maybe a grande, and. If you are on a campaign or at least some sort of program of working on yourself, I want to be the best version of myself. Trust me, a lot of this other stuff is not a big deal, but you do learn how small you are by the kind of things that irritate you. Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll give you a story because I think this is probably my biggest life lesson, and I never thought I was going to discover this life lesson.
What's that?
Where I discovered it, and I was buying a car, and. So I was shopping for a Tesla for some time, and I couldn't find one, and I decided to buy new, and then I just didn't want to wait, and so I went on Craigslist, and I said, you know what, I'm going to look on Craigslist. So luckily I found something, and I've been doing so much research that I knew once I found it that it was the one. I went there, the car had a small scratch, and I told the owner, I said, I'll buy the car if you can clean up that scratch, right? Okay. And this guy, later I found out he has strong political connections. He's friends with Obama. I mean, just a really unique situation. And the guy just told me, he's like, if you don't want the car, don't buy the car. Because in my mind, that was a big problem, right? The little scratch. To him, he had 1,000 other things. To him, it was just like, that's not even a problem. And I took that where if that scratch bothered me so much, then I need, I don't want to say be in his position, but if I had that many problems or those things going on, the scratch is meaningless. So that to me was always a kind of a life lesson that I got, not knowing that I was going to buy a car and I was going to get that life lesson of
buying a Tesla.
Well, I mean, it was a used Tesla. But,
yeah, the same way I have an Audi A6, and I always feel the need to tell people I bought it used. Yeah, I bought it 2 years old. Yeah.
But I think who I bought it from was kind of neat. But
That's kind of cool.
If you don't want the car, I'll take it, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
scratch or
not.
Still has a scratch. It has more scratches now.
Take
Done.
it over to East Los. Let them
Done.
rub it out, bro.
Get a little mural on that thing.
Yeah, that's
Cover
right,
it
dude.
up.
The Aztec guy with holding up the warrior princess all over it.
On
dude.
the hood.
On the hood.
OCtavio, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
This
having
is
me.
fun. I think we got to bring you back once you guys get. I know you mentioned you're part of the commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were on the Concerts in the Park committee and the Street Banner
Street
program
banners.
committee.
So, by the way, if
together.
you don't like any of the street banners, that was Christine's choice.
And if you like them, they're your.
They're my choice. Right, that's
Fair
right.
enough, fair enough.
Which street banners?
I picked all the feminist ones. What?
Which street banners?
The ones at it's like an art program, obviously.
But it's
art.
the one in Uptown or the one on Whittier?
It's
Whittier
on-
Boulevard?
Yeah, Whittier Boulevard. I think it may be in Uptown as
Yeah.
well, on Washington,
So
along
do
the
you
main
want to hear a fun
thoroughfares.
fact? You know, I was the
Absolutely.
one that designed all the Uptown Whittier banners when I was part of the Uptown Association. Those ugly old ones, orange ones that had the orange groves on them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that
5-6 years
because
ago.
fun fact, I remember that that's where you got the photo of the women in the packing house. That became the What's Up Whittier. Like I think that's still our cover thing. Yeah.
Good photo.
Yeah, you showed those
So
to me.
you're a graphic artist by trade?
No,
No.
it was I was the more techie one in the group, and someone said.
He was the IT guy
Someone
at the
says,
county.
"Who can design this?" I'm like, "Well, I can put layers on top of things."
Done.
And
You were
so-
the guy.
and I was the guy. So
Yeah, okay.
it was a neat thing. I got access to a lot of the historical photos
Yeah.
from the Whittier
Museum in the library.
And so, if anything, that was probably just worth it. There, seeing all those old.
Yeah, it's a cool
photos.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'd love to come back. Maybe touch on another subject. Maybe we'll talk about men's fashion
There you go.
and something else close to my heart.
There you go.
Forget Jesse's not going to be.
That's right.
participating in
You have to
that.
get another
That could
host.
be- I was gonna say that could be part of the workings, man.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah,
the
we could do a
experiment.
live episode.
The experiment.
Yeah. Dress you up.
Yeah.
Before we end, I want to start something new, man. Before we get into
Our typical.
typical Whittier questions, and I think I kicked it off because we do have a book here.
Okay.
If you had to recommend a book
Mhm.
to somebody,
Mhm.
aside from your book,
Mhm.
because we already talked about this,
Or your
what,
other book.
what book would you recommend? If somebody's looking to read something,
For what reason? Let me ask you that.
just in general, based on your life, all the books you've read in your entire life, and you say,
Yeah.
you know what? If somebody's asking me for a book recommendation, what would I recommend?
Yeah, okay, part of me wants to say the Bible because, you're a Christian, you're supposed to say that. I'll stick to my guns. I'd say the scriptures, and I'll even say this, that the scriptures belong in every bookstore. Obviously they are, but they belong in the self-help section. If people want to learn how to live their lives, read the Bible. And when people say these stories are boring, then I don't know what you're reading. There's murder, there's rape, there's mystical language, there's poetry, there is historical records, there's royal intrigue. It's a fascinating book. A little background in the Jewish context was extremely helpful. But find a translation that's easy to read. The message is a good one. And just read the book, and maybe something will speak to you. But if not, at least you won't be illiterate, because the Bible is probably the most translated book in the world. It has colored writers, painters, poets. The Western canon of literature it's influenced our governments. You should not be illiterate of the Bible. So read the Bible for your benefit, and then maybe read it to see, oh my gosh, there's biblical language in the Constitution or in our laws. They were all influenced by the Bible.
And is there a book you're currently reading right now?
In the Bible?
No,
Book
a
of
book,
Deuteronomy?
just a book.
Oh, a
Just
book?
a book in general.
Yeah, okay. I'm reading The Primacy of Christ by Bishop Robert Barron. It's an academic look at theology. So yeah, it's a great book. But if you love movies like I do, I love movies. Bishop Robert Barron, he's got a degree in philosophy and of course a doctorate in Catholic theology. He gives great movie reviews. So I'm pushing a plug for Bishop Robert Barron. Google Bishop Robert Barron movie reviews. The Departed, Gran Torino, whatever. Great movie reviews. An interesting guy.
Right, there you go. Remo.
Well, if there's a place that people can find you
Hold
around.
on. Hold on. We're not done yet.
What?
if you had to suggest a book to somebody or a book you're reading right now, what would it be?
We're going to ask each other every single day.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same
We
book.
better be reading a different
No,
book.
no.
every month, are we?
I'm not that much of a scholar.
No,
What are you reading
that's what I'm
next
saying.
week?
Either a book you will recommend or a book
I
that
think one of the most impactful books that I've read recently is Atomic Habits.
Okay.
So Atomic Habits, the idea is that it's the tiniest little habit that you do that compounds over time,
Yes.
gets you to results. And we talked about eating or even exercising. It's eating that extra meal times 100 is what gets you unhealthy or healthy, right? And so Atomic Habit, James Clear, I think for me is by far, hands down, one of the best books I've read.
I'll share something really quickly. Last year, I set a goal to read 5,000 pages, and I think I did 49 something. This year, it's 10,000 pages. I'm only at about 2,000, but I should make it.
How many books was close to that 5,000?
I think there were only 15.
15.
Yeah.
And how do you track it?
I keep a
Clicker?
bullet journal.
Okay.
And I do have devices on my phone, but I'm still analog world where I would jot down the book, how many pages it was, what's the cume, and in every book I give a summary of what I just read, maybe pages that were important principles, so that if I open that book up, I have a summary in the first 2 pages of what I read.
Because that's tough. When you start reading a lot of books, things start mixing into each other. And,
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So that's why, like I said, the
rewriting it.
Besides highlighting and making notes in the margins, and I have a folder on my iPhone. It's got 6 or 7 different reference books, philosophy dictionaries, 2 other dictionaries, a Catholic encyclopedia. So I look up words and ideas as I'm reading, because it's easy just to read. I don't know what that means, and you keep going. But I'll write in the margin the definitions and that kind of thing.
Nice.
Jessie?
Christine?
So yeah, I pulled it up because I didn't remember the name of the authors, but I'm finishing up the Athena Doctrine: How Women and the Men Who Think Like Them Will Rule the Future. I wonder why. It's by Michael D'Antonio and John Gerzema. It's a really great book. It talks about leadership in different areas of the world. So right now I'm reading about, and it's funny, I'm in the middle of this chapter about Colombia and how, they got this new railway system, and to keep it looking nice, they have a cement wall where people can do arts and can do murals, which I might bring up at a meeting.
Nice.
But because that makes me think, because people are talking about the Metro Gold Line, they're like, it's going to bring crime and blah, blah, blah. Some people are not happy about it. And so a creative way of, letting our community be in love with that place is to have some sort of stock or some sort of investment. So that would be like this beautiful mural. We want to keep the mural beautiful. And we want to keep the city beautiful. And that's just one way. But it's cool because it talks about all these other countries, like I believe it's in Switzerland. They include like animals and children in the Constitution because they have rights as well. So I don't know. It's just a good book about leadership.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Dr. Zeus, Jessie, I knew it.
It is Dr. Seuss month, which is why I was bringing it up partially. It's you should go out there and read a book for everybody who's not reading. But the reason why I brought it up too, obviously, aside from interviewing somebody who's written a book, I just finished a book, and it was actually the Michelle Obama book, Becoming.
Oh, Becoming, okay.
Yeah, and which was a recommendation from our past guest, who was also a writer.
Okay.
And so I did the audiobook, which was a Remo recommendation. Now you don't have to read books anymore; you just got to listen to them. And it was a really good book. I mean, you talk about somebody's life experience, and for me, anytime I'm all about having either watching a movie or reading a book that is based on true facts.
Yes.
or based on life.
Yep.
Just because I always consider myself the guy who did that movie. What's that Indian movie? Bali.
Monsoon Wedding?
It was like the kid who.
Slumdog Millionaire?
Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always a Slumdog Millionaire who like gets a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and somehow has experience now of the world. Anyways, that book alone was pretty good. Not that it's the best book I've read, but it was the more recent. And again, just going into somebody's life and knowing the details puts a different perspective on how the world runs.
Yeah. Oh, you realize they're human. They made some choices that made them the person that they are.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Remo?
Well, going to the Whittier questions here. So if someone were to find you eating at a local eatery here, or maybe getting some coffee, what are some of your go-to spots?
Oh, Mr. Sandwich. Same thing every single time. Tuna, dry, on squaw, extra onions. Let's see here. It used to be the ballroom quite a bit before, not as much. That I would say fly crooked staff.
Crooked Gaff.
Crooked Gaff.
Yeah, and then the Starbucks on Whittier and Colima.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In the actual Starbucks kind of hanging out?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have a great home. I love it. It's a nice place, but the energy of people around you, and I'm not even necessarily there for conversation, but just
life is around.
Yeah, just around. Yeah, I realize I'm going to be that old man in the park, feeding pigeons probably, or the mall.
By the way, squaw bread is underrated, man.
It is underrated,
people
right?
People who don't know or had not had squaw bread, dude.
Get a squaw bread sandwich and get free.
Yeah.
Set yourself free.
Yeah. If there's something that you leave the city for that you would like to be here, what would that be?
What do you mean
leave? Like
is Whittier missing anything?
Yeah.
Oh, we need more shops and retails, more restaurants.
Is there a certain type of restaurant that you would like to see?
No, I need variety. Maybe Indian food would be cool. Just anything ethnic, anything different. But just restaurants, and shopping. I think about Claremont Village. I think about South Pass, Fullerton. Whittier has much more culture to offer, and so if anyone's listening to this is an investor, restaurateur, shop owner, come to Whittier. Open up your business. There's money here.
Yeah. And then the newest question. What it is?
Yeah, it's a Christine question.
Oh, sure it is. What is your favorite Whittier memory? Besides being on the commission, of course.
Nothing tops that. I think taking the kids to the park at Central Park when they were younger. When you're a young dad, you think, oh, is this ever when are they finally going to grow up? And when they're gone, you miss it.
Yeah,
it's a strange thing. Yeah. But the concerts at Central Park, I used to love. We lived in Uptown, and we would just walk up and bring our lawn chairs, and that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. By the way, when do the concerts at the park start?
End of June, I think.
I'm looking at you.
That's great.
It's usually the first.
It's on the website.
Last week of June.
I can pull up the minutes right
now.
Just, do you want
I would say it's the last week of June. They skip 4th of July, and then it goes 6 straight weeks.
Oh, so we still have time.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about the lineup because we can't say. I don't think we can say.
No,
because it's actually also not official.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
stay tuned. It's really exciting.
Stay tuned.
But we get to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's true. Okay, this is the real reason why I ran to be the mayor. I wanted to do the Pledge of Allegiance before the concerts at the park. No, that's a joke. No, I just asked if I could do it because I've been going to the concerts like my whole life, and I told my mom one time, like, one day I'm going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I asked, and they said I can. So
imagine that.
I'm going to do the Pledge of Allegiance,
Done.
Making dreams come true. City of Whittier.
That's right.
Do you know it pretty well?
If you could dream it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
If you could dream it, you could be it.
Absolutely.
Octavio, thank you for coming on.
Thank you again for having me.
Again, we'll have to bring you on in the future once you get onto book number 3.
Oh, you asked me earlier where they can find me. Oh, was that just Whittier sites or the internet?
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, that as well. It was just physically see you, like where do you hang out. But how do people connect with you? I know, and the name of the book again.
So if they go to Amazon and look up my name, OCtavio Cesar Martinez, the first book, Habits, is there. The second one should be there by the end of the month. Or currently they can go to my website, OCtavioCesarMartinez.com. The link will take them to the publisher, and they can buy it directly from the publisher until the Amazon link is working.
Very cool. Yep. And do you have social media or anything that they follow you?
Yes. Facebook is Octavio Cesar Martinez. Instagram is OC Martinez. I'm kind of like they can just go to the Instagram. LinkedIn is my name, and Twitter's my name.
Very cool.
Twitter's my name.
There you go.
Tweeting's my game.
Again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you again.
And Whittier, we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, Whittier.
Bye, Whittier.
Bye.